Years ago, long before I had this watch channel, I bought a G-Shock and I immediately returned it. At the time, it just felt small and cheap, like a toy. Today, we'll take a look at a different version of that same watch. But this one has been upgraded with a stainless steel bezel. And I have to admit, it completely changes the overall feel of the watch. This is the Casio G-Shock, model number GM-5600B. At the time of this video, you can find this watch on Amazon for $139 US. Hey everyone, welcome back to Eric's Everyday Watches. As always, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, please do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing. So as everyone knows, G-Shocks are extremely popular, so much so that people refer to them as their own brand. No one says Casio G-Shock, it's just G-Shock, and for good reason. With their shockproof construction, even the cheapest models are known for being rugged and reliable and have a great reputation for quality. Now, despite the watch's popularity, it's just not for me. There is one con which holds me back from keeping this watch. This particular model is less of a tool watch and more of a bare bones, looks good kind of watch, but that is not my issue with it. You know, let's start from the beginning. The case and bracelet in this are both silicone. It is only the bezel that sits on top, which is a black ion-coated stainless steel. The diameter comes in at a deceptive 42.5 millimeters, although the watch looks much smaller than that. For a lug-to-lug distance on the side, we have 49 millimeters. But more important than that is the effective lug-to-lug distance, including the strap, which comes in at 56.5 millimeters. The metal bezel on this watch has a dual finish to it. The top of the case has a vertical brushing while the rest of it has a polished finish. The black color does help to hide fingerprints, somewhat. On the side of the case, there is no downturn to the lugs, and the case thickness comes in at 13 millimeters. Now the metal part of the watch is nicely finished, and it would be easy to not realize that the metal bezel section is simply covering the resin material underneath. It feels that integrated. The whole watch does really. The black bezel, the black strap, the inverted display, it all works together. It feels slick and stealthy. And honestly, the best part about this watch is the overall looks, in my opinion. On the back of the watch, there's a stainless steel caseback, which is held on by 4 screws. Now the design of the caseback is well done. With its beveled indentations, it looks like it's going to be rugged and tough. Now one downside, of course, is that you're going to have to unscrew those 4 screws every 2 years to change the battery. On the caseback, we have text that reads water resistant 20 bars, which is 200 meters or 660 feet, stainless steel, made in Thailand, shock absorbing structure, and of course, the G-Shock logo. Now inside that case, we have Casio's 3229 quartz movement, and that is going to use the CR2016 battery. And you can expect to get a life expectancy out of that of 24 months or 2 years. Of course, that is going to depend on how much you actually use the alarms and the backlight. Now the case on this watch has 4 large push-up buttons, and thankfully they are larger than the standard 5600 G-Shock, meaning that they are going to be easier to use and to push. Now the button in the lower left, also called the C button, is going to advance to the different modes. So we're starting out in the timekeeping mode, push it one time to the alarm mode. Pushing it again gets us to the countdown mode, and pushing it yet again gets us to the stopwatch mode. And that's it. There are 4 modes on this watch. Now when you're in a specific mode, such as the stopwatch mode, pushing the button in the upper right, also called the B button, will start and stop stopwatch. And then pushing the button in the upper left, called the A button, resets the stopwatch. And finally, pushing the button in the lower left will always get you back to the home screen. Now the stopwatch on this measures 1/100th of a second and is capable of a lapse split time for both first and second place. The countdown timer measures 1 second and can start as high as 24 hours. There is also a multifunctional alarm which can be set to signal hourly, as well as a flash alert to go along with that alarm. This watch is also capable of 12 and 24-hour time formats. Now what this watch does not have are things like Bluetooth, solar power, multi-band 6, and what is the big con for me is it does not have an auto backlight. Now when you do activate the backlight, it does do a great job. It's nice and bright and visible. My issue is that it doesn't stay on very long, but more importantly than that, there are just a lot of times where I have difficulty seeing this negative display. It needs to catch the light in just the right angle. Now if that was my only issue with this display, I could possibly get over it. But then this happened when I go outside in a bright light. The way that it flickers, and this is not specific to Casio or G-Shock. This can happen with all types of LCD displays in a bright light. But you see now, I have an issue with it in dim environments and bright light conditions. For me personally, that means I'm only going to be able to enjoy this watch maybe 50% of the time. It is a negative display on this watch which I just can't get past. So another thing we need to talk about is the resin strap that comes with this watch. It is 25mm at the case and tapers down to 21mm at the clasp. It's not very comfortable, there's not much give to it, and quite honestly, it just looks and feels a little cheap. Now there are quick release spring bars, but I have a very difficult time actually reaching them with my finger, and that defeats the entire point of having quick release spring bars. And lastly, the clasp does not match the rest of the case or the watch. It is a shiny chrome color with this odd shape to it, and I can't help but think of the cheapest clasp you could possibly buy at AliExpress. So let's list out the specs for this watch. We have a mineral crystal, Casio's 3229 quartz movement, a diameter of 42.5mm, a thickness of 13mm, a lug-to-lug distance of 49mm, and we have a water resistance of 200 meters. And finally, let's wrap up by going over the pros and cons. For pros, aesthetics. I have to admit this is a great looking watch. You get 200 meters of water resistance and of course the shock resistance technology of a G-Shock. Now for cons, legibility. I just can't get past that negative display. And that resin strap left a lot to be desired. So my final thoughts on this. For a watch that is meant to be worn indoors, outdoors, and all types of activities, I just can't get past the fact that the negative display is something I can only read about half of the time. And it pains me to say that because I do think this is a great looking watch. This has been Eric from Eric's Everyday Watches, reminding you to buy the watch that you love and don't pay any attention to what anybody else says or thinks. This is your watch collection. If you like this video, if you find it helpful in any way, please do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video.